Recently, Jagex implemented an update into the free-to-play version of Oldschool Runescape that allowed players to use energy potions, allowing them to restore 10% of their run energy per sip. As someone who is currently in the process of creating a series based around the free-to-play game, this was a much welcome update to RuneScape, and I'm sure that I speak for the other players in RuneScape who play in the free-to-play servers when I say that this was a great update to the game. Back in October, the first ever free-to-play boss, Obor the Titan, was added to the game as well, allowing players in the free-to-play version of the game to grind out for giant keys so they could access Obor's dungeon and fight for the chance of receiving the giant bone club, as well as other items, which is the hardest hitting weapon in the free-to-play version of RuneScape to date. With gilded armor also being added to free-to-play, Jagex have done some fantastic improvements to the free-to-play version of the game. They have taken content that was exclusively members, such as energy potions and gilded armor, and have allowed free-to-play members of the game to have access to these items because they realised that these items were more useful to free-to-play players than those of us who pay for membership. In this video, I'm going to go through some of the other items and content that I think should be released into the free-to-play version of the game. I think that these things that I have picked will not be missed in the paying version of the game, and I think that if they were implemented into the free-to-play version, the game itself would continue to grow and add some much needed variety to the game, as it's seen with Obor the Titan being added. Before energy potions were added into free-to-play, the only other potion that players could use in the free version of RuneScape was the strength potion. This potion is normally seen used by free-to-play players on the wilderness worlds, allowing players to increase their strength momentarily to achieve the highest hit they can, normally with a rune 2H. However, what if the attack and defense potions were added into free-to-play as well? On members, the attack and defense potions are virtually useless. The super versions of these potions are relatively cheap, and they increase the attack and defense of a player for far longer than the attack and defense potion do. I think that if these potions were added into free-to-play, then the PvP scene on free-to-play worlds would be changed for the better. These potions are not used on members, and like the energy potion, perhaps this content in the game can be revitalized by bringing it into free-to-play. In the current version of the free-to-play game, it is possible to wield cosmetic items such as bronze gold trimmed armor, Blued Wizard gold trimmed robes, and even Monk gold trimmed robes. However, the only place for these items that can be circulated into free-to-play is from members, because these items can only be gained from completing an easy clue scroll. I think that if Jagex were to introduce easy clue scrolls into free-to-play, then players would get an incentive to buy membership bonds, as the cost of these rare items are quite high. It would also allow players to get into membership content. Perhaps they enjoy completing easy clue scrolls and want to try something harder, like a medium clue scroll. By giving them a taste of what it is like to complete a clue scroll, new players can have a taste of what it is like to be a member and will have more incentive to buy membership. If easy clue scrolls were to be added into free-to-play, then I would have the only source of dropping them to be Obor the Titan, an update that could be added to the paying version of the game as well. I would also have the drop table limited to free-to-play only items, so things like berets, white flares and so on would have to be removed. Back in 2008, Jagex made an update to the free-to-play version of the game where players had the chance of obtaining a corrupt version of dragon weaponry and armor. Back then, Jagex did an update to the wilderness which made it impossible for players to PK other players' items as part of the massive clampdown on real-world trading that was happening at the time. Instead of taking another player's items when you killed them, you would have the chance of gaining a corrupt dragon drop, such as the corrupt dragon scimitar, which retained all the stats of a real dragon scimitar but would eventually degrade into nothing after 30 or so minutes of use. These items are still in RuneScape on RuneScape 3, meaning that there is a clause for them to be added into Oldschool Runescape. They also act as a demo for real dragon items, meaning that the new players would have an extra incentive to buy a membership so they could use real dragon items that wouldn't eventually disappear out of their inventories. Having corrupt dragon items in Oldschool would also breathe extra fresh air into the free-to-play game, giving more variety for its players. If these corrupt items were added into free-to-play, then I would have Obor the Titan drop them as a really rare drop, kind of like the equivalence to a draconic visage on members. Currently in free-to-play, the normal magic spellbook is capped at level 59. After a player in free-to-play gains the ability to use the Fire Blast spell, there are no further spells that can be used. As seen in Deadman Mode Season 5, when Ancients and Lunars were capped for a week, the normal Magic spellbook is vastly inferior for PKing in comparison to Ancients and Lunars. This is why in the main game, PKers normally use Ancients and Lunars to PK with, except in certain situations where the Teleblock spell is required. Content such as the God spells, Flames and Zamorak and so on are hardly used on the main game. Other spells such as Entangle and Stun are almost never used, with the latter only being used by members as a way to train their magic level through the Stun alchemy method. What I'm trying to say here is that the Magic spellbook is capped unnecessarily, leaving good content that could be used in free-to-play dead in its tracks. I think that if Jagex were to add a capped version of the normal spellbook, such as giving only a certain amount of cast Flame of Zamorak for example, and allowing players to use Entangle, Stun, Vulnerability and the other spells, would allow this dead content to come back into the game. It would also give Magic a much needed buff in free to play, as PKers hardly ever use Magic because of how poor it is to PK with. This would also mean that the Mage Arena would be open to free to play. However, with talks of Mage Arena 2 being implemented into the game at some point, I don't think that players would care all that much. I wouldn't have it that the Magic capes you could get with the God Scars would become available, as that might become too OP. As it is right now in free-to-play worlds, you can buy Maple Logs on the Grand Exchange for roughly 8 GP each. In free-to-play, Maple Logs are the cheapest and yet fastest way for you to train your fire making level. Yet in free-to-play worlds there are no maple trees for you to cut. This should change. Among other things, the range skill in free-to-play is currently capped at level 30 for wielding bows and level 40 for armor. In member worlds you can wield a U short bow at level 40 range alongside green D-hide, but you cannot do this in free-to-play. In free-to-play, the highest level bow you can wield is a maple bow, and you can only use adamant arrows. I think that it should be changed that you can cut maple logs in free-to-play. This wouldn't drastically change the dynamics of the game, as you can get maple logs from the Grand Exchange anyway. I also think you should be able to use a U short bow at level 40 range alongside rune arrows as well, because like the maple bows, the U bow doesn't have a special attack, which should be a member's benefit only, and rune arrows are only slightly more powerful than adamant. It should also be considered that in free-to-play you can wield rune armor and weaponry at level 40 defense and attack, yet you cannot wield rune arrows in free-to-play. This is unfair and unbalanced. If you can cut U trees on free-to-play as well, why shouldn't you be able to use U short bows? If Jagex were to implement these changes, then I would have the maple trees located somewhere near Falador that makes it far enough from the bank to make it harder in comparison to members, thus keeping up the incentive for players to buy membership. I would also have the U bows and rune arrows added to the Rarok archery store and the Grand Exchange. So tell me, what did you think about my list? I tried to think of content that is currently not being used on members, had been in free-to-play before, or was part of current free-to-play content but cannot be used because of the caps that Jagex have implemented into the game. For example, you can see the God spells and the other spells I mentioned on a normal Magic spellbook in free-to-play, but cannot use them because they are members. I also think that the attack and defense potions being added into the free-to-play game is a good shout because they are currently not being used by members players. You can tell me what you thought about my list by commenting down below, and if you like my ideas then please hit the like button. I'm currently in the progress of making a free-to-play series. I've done about 4 episodes already recorded, and I came up with this list to see whether or not you would like me to incorporate these ideas into that series. Even though my list is currently all members or not even added to the old school right now, I'd still be keeping to free-to-play areas and training my skills like it would be free-to-play. I don't know, you can tell me down below. And if you are new to the channel then please hit the subscribe button, I'd really appreciate it. But other than that, I will end the video here and thank you again for watching. I'll see you in my next video, which should be my next progress video for Vezela.